Robert Quinn, it's an interesting scenario, a little bit longer in the tooth. Hasn't played a whole heck of a lot. Now he shows up on the injury report, and here to talk about it is your Philadelphia Eagles world champion, of course, head coach of the New Orleans Breakers, Coach John DeFilippo, Coach Flip, each and every Friday here on the Football Playbook, my favorite time of the week. Coach, good morning.
Me too.
Hey, before we get into it, I know you were out at the Hub football camp in San Diego, had a chance to see some street free agents. Tell us about that whole experience.
Yeah, it was great. Long way to go out to San Diego, but well worth it. Saw some guys flying around out there, which was really good, and at every position. And there's some good players at that camp, and I was pleased with the attendance of it and the way it's structured there with those guys. If they do an unbelievable job of just getting it moving. The guys measured, and there were some really good coaches there as well. So it was a well-run camp. Like I said, I saw probably, I don't want to slight anybody, probably 10 to 12 guys that can really, really play. And so it's like, so it was well worth the trip for sure.
Yeah, no, I've had a chance to work with Hub Football, of course. Don Yee, the agent for Brady and Peyton and so many others, is kind of orchestrated this great event that 154 guys we've gotten back into the league, whether it be NFL, CFL, USFL, XFL. So yeah, great event. I was sorry to miss it this go around.
Yeah, we missed you, man. It was a beautiful day in Southern California. I can tell you that.
Oh man, it's a quick turnaround, but it's so worth it.
It's so worth it.
I
hate land in San Diego. There's just a little your stress level just.
It is. I live at the Jersey Shore, but it's a different vibe out there in Cali.
Totally different vibe.
Yeah, for sure. All right, hey, John DeFilippo here on the Football Playbook. Let's get into it. Speaking of free agents, the Eagles signed a bunch of them this week. Every time I turn around, there's a new player, and kudos to Howie Roseman for having the cap room, the flexibility, and the awareness to inject. We talked about Robert Quinn last week. Oh, by the way, this week after the Commanders, they were efficient with it. They only averaged 3.1 yards per carry, Coach, but they ran it 49 times down their throat. Since Jordan Davis has gone out, Eagles defense is allowed 160 yards rushing per game as opposed to 109 with Jordan Davis in there. Howie Roseman saying, hey, we got to do something about this. He brings in first Linval Joseph, then Ndamukong Suh. Your thoughts in terms of signing veteran guys off the street, off the couch? High pedigree, by the way.
No doubt. And those are two big names. I was with Linval in Minnesota. Linval, our run defense was totally different without him in the game when he was down. So he's a little long in the tooth, but he is a big man, and he's going to be a load to move. And he's a really good athlete for how big he is. He's a tremendous guy. Ndamukong Suh is a guy that has done this at a high level for a long time. It'll be interesting to see how much juice he does have left in the tank. That will be very interesting to see. I would assume that he's not going to be a 3-down player. They're probably going to play him on first and second down, and I don't know. We'll see. But it's going to be hard for a guy coming off the street, in my opinion, to come in and play a full game right away. And the thing about when you add what I call name players like Linval Joseph, Ndamukong Suh, when you add name players, guys that have name recognition to them, there's a reason they have name recognition to them, because they've had success. So when you sign guys like that late in the season, it doesn't usually take them too long to get going, because they've done it before and they've done it at a high level. So coming in and playing quarterback and coming in and playing defensive line in the middle of the season are two different things. Receiver, D line, and that's not a slight on the D lineman by any means, but stay in your gap. Hey, I got C gap responsibility. I got A gap responsibility. It's not rocket science to play D line. It's just not. And you got to learn the blitzes and the stunts and all those things. But it's a lot easier to sign a guy like that than it is to bring in like a wideout mid-year.
Yeah, and apparently he's tipping the scales at 335 pounds these days. Coach Jonathan Gannon mentioned in his presser yesterday, also in Minnesota, said This guy has got top-notch character. And they asked him about the conditioning. He said, one thing I'm not concerned about is this guy being in shape. He's always in shape. Linval Joseph said he's been training for this moment. And he said he wanted to go to a situation where he could come back and actually play. So we'll see. I think if he steps into that void of Jordan Davis, who was playing 25, 30 snaps a game, that could suit him well. I don't expect him to do that this Sunday.
Right.
And I do want to ask you, we'll go back to that Commanders game in a moment here, but I do want to ask you about Jonathan Taylor, because I, for one, am concerned about the J train when this guy at 230 pounds, coach, 4.4 40 type speed, and we've seen the Eagles have trouble wrapping up in the open field. We've seen them stopping the run up the middle. Jonathan Taylor, two things this guy excels at. I know it's been a little bit of a crazy season in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I still think last week is the latest example. Jonathan Taylor is a guy that will wear you down.
It's obvious that's how teams are going to try to play the Eagles now. I mean, like you said, 49 rushing attempts last week. And yeah, I mean, he's a guy that can take it to the house at any point. He's a big, strong man. And he's came into this year with everyone thinking that he was going to be the top one of the MVP candidate type player, you know, and obviously things haven't unraveled a little bit there in Indianapolis, unfortunately. And the season hasn't gone as they expected, but you know, it'll be interesting to see, you know, how, like you said, how much these new D linemen play and if they can really hold up in the middle there, because that's going to be important in playing these Colts. And, you know, again, we just talked about, you know, veteran D linemen. Well, you also, the other thing is now, I mean, Matt Ryan, again, another veteran quarterback that, you know, again, went off last week. Those guys are always a threat to go off on you. And that's why in the NFL, it's just so hard. There's never a week off. All of a sudden you got Matt Ryan coming in and, you know, at you. And that guy's won a lot of football games, thrown for a lot of yards. And we saw it last week against the Raiders. I mean, they just went in and did what they wanted offensively. And it was just, you know, Matt's always a threat to do those things. And I've known Matt since he was in high school. I mean, I was a GA at Notre Dame, a graduate assistant coach, and he was in high school with Philadelphia. And then we ended up offering Brady Quinn instead. But you know, my dad was the athletic director for, you know, 16 football seasons at Boston College when Matt was there. So I'm a little bit of a Matt homer. He's always been one of my favorites, and not only a favorite player, but favorite people too. And obviously he's a Philly guy, and you know, we always cheer for our Philly guys. And but yeah, I mean, he's a stud. I mean, that's he and Jonathan Taylor. You know, they're getting. It looks like they're playing a little bit better up front the last couple of weeks. The Colts are. You know, they really struggled protecting the passer early in the season, and if they can continue to keep Matty Ice upright, he can operate. Obviously,
Matty Ice. I remember those fourth quarter comebacks at BC, and BC has Notre Dame this week. Always a fun one. But
oh yeah,
you know, listen, you mentioned the blueprint that the Commanders kind of laid out this past week, and they got efficient quarterback play from Tyler Heineke. Matt Ryan, pretty efficient last week himself, I think 22 of 28, so they're going to get that again. They had a healthy dose of the run game. They're going to see that again. But let's go back to that Commanders game, because for the first time this season, the Eagles were beatable. They were vulnerable. They turned the ball over more in that game than they did in the previous 7 games. And, you know, there was a little bit sense of like the sky is falling this week here in Philadelphia. Where do you put the panic level here, Coach, after their first loss of the season?
0. Okay. There's panic level 0.
Okay.
Now, and here's why. And not only they got beat, okay? You're going to get beat. And obviously a division game at home, you never want to lose. But when you listen to the player comments after the game, you come out and hear Jason Kelsey go on his podcast and say, was it a face mask? Sure it was, but it wasn't called, so it wasn't a penalty. To hear guys in the locker room own up to what happened, to hear the coaching staff, you know, to hear Nick Sirianni get up and say, boy, we just stumped tonight. That's just calling it what it is. And that's that's what you have to be to get better. You call it what it is and say, hey guys, this is what happened. This is how we can alleviate this happening again. Doesn't mean the Eagles aren't going to lose another game all season. But it was great to see both the coaching staff and the players own up to what happened. Sometimes I call it the snowball effect, something that goes wrong, and it just kind of snowballs on you. As the snowball gets bigger as it goes down the hill. And that's what it felt like the other night. And, obviously Taylor Heineke brings some juice to that team. Anytime you have a guy like that can extend the play, it's hard on the defense, and he's a tough kid, and he's just a gamer, and you root for guys like that. But I was just happy to see everyone own it.
No, I think there's just the accountability from the veteran leadership in this locker room that, is going to keep the younger players in line. So I tend to agree with you there. Although I do think they're vulnerable more than ever before. If they don't get it back on track against the Colts, then you might start getting a little bit concerned. But, reinforcements are on the way. By the way, it sounds like, I don't know the full details of it, but it sounds like Ron Rivera kicked the can down the road in terms of Carson Wentz return. They're going to wait another week. Tyler Heineke has kind of jump-started this team. I mean, the Commanders are the top 8 records in the NFC, 4 of them are from the NFC East. Like, the Commanders are still hanging around. What would you do, Coach, like in terms of assessing that whole quarterback situation? Would you wait and see how Heineke plays this week? How do you compare and contrast the Commanders with Heineke versus Wentz in there?
Yeah, I don't know all the rules. I know they put Carson on IR, and I don't know all the rules. That there is a grace period before you can come back and play. So I don't want to speak out of turn, in terms of, is he allowed to play this week? Is he not? I don't think he is from the IR rules that I've read. Okay. But I mean, obviously, if he goes out and wins this football game this weekend, I'm talking about Heineke. I mean, he's gonna be a hard guy to put on the bench, and not only from a win-loss standpoint, but at the end of the day, I mean, there's a bunch of other guys in that locker room that are looking to see what's going on as well. So we don't know what's going on inside that building, in terms of the juice level, how the team feels about each player. You know what I mean? And so obviously Coach Rivera is going to have to make that decision along with Scott Turner and Ken Zampese, the OC and quarterback coach, respectively. And all 3 of those guys I know and are smart people, and they'll make the right decision for what they think is best for that football team. And, it'd be hard to sit a young man, though, if he goes out and wins this weekend. It'd be really hard.
Yeah, I mean, they won 4 out of the last 5. I think they're going to beat the Texans this week. That'll put them at 6-5. Wow. Cowboys at the Vikings this week, they could drop to 6-4. It's just unbelievable. This Commanders team, Ron Rivera, burying his mom this week. Wow. I give him a lot of credit for the perseverance.
Unbelievable. That's what people don't like. NFL football and football in general doesn't stop for life. All right. It like for life issues. If you're having trouble at home, if your child has the flu, or if you're unfortunately, if your mother passes away, I mean, that's what people don't understand is coaches. I don't want to guarantee anything, but Ron Rivera probably either buried his mother where he could not miss practice. Like that's the commitment level of players and coaches in the National Football League. I mean, I induced my wife during training camp on a player's day off so I didn't have to miss practice. And so I know it sounds crazy to people, and it is a little bit. But that's just the way it goes. And you got to play, you got to coach. That's what we get reimbursed for and paid for. And you got to be there. And it just, unfortunately, at times, life doesn't stop because of NFL football, but
yeah, no, I mean, listen, you make a good point. Players' wives, coaches' wives, they understand that football is the first true love. And
the players, the majority of usually most players will have, the kids are all born on Monday or Tuesday because that's the player's day off, and it's just, but people don't, I saw a video of one of the linemen for one of the teams running in the locker room because his kid had just gotten born and sprinting into the locker room to get ready for the game. It's that's the way it goes. You play, you got to play, you got to coach. I mean, I had the flu last year in Chicago. I had the flu so bad they sent me home. I couldn't keep anything down, and luckily we were at Detroit on Thanksgiving, and I went home. They sent me home around noon. I woke up at 4 in the morning. They had car service pick me up and drive me to Detroit at 4:30 in the morning on Thanksgiving morning. Yeah, that's what you do. And so, off with the flu I went, but at least I could hold some stuff down.
Yeah, behind the scenes with Coach Flip here on the Football Playbook, like we do each and every Football Friday. And, I mentioned the Titans will be on deck coming down the road. They played the Packers last night. Not sure how much you saw that game. I will self-admittedly tell you I did not see a heck of a lot of it. But those are the next two Eagles opponents, and I know we're not going to have you on next week. We have a abbreviated week with the holiday schedule. There's no Football Playbook Thursday and Friday next week. So I did want to get your opinion, though, on the Green Bay Packers, a team that when the Eagles were soaring high early in the season, we said November 27th, let's circle the calendar. That's going to be the litmus test. They went to 3-6. What are they now? 4-6 or 4-7. Aaron Rodgers has had somewhat of a roller coaster season. And Coach, I just saw he hasn't had a 300-yard passing game in a full 16-game slate now. He was very critical of some of the younger receivers and younger players on this team. We saw Christian Watson bounce back, not last night, but last week.
Yeah.
With 3 touchdowns. What do you make of Aaron Rodgers at this stage of his career and the Green Bay Packers' chances? It looks like the Vikings are off to the races with this division. Do you think the Packers can still salvage the season? And is Aaron Rodgers still a top-notch bona fide quarterback from what you've been able to see from a distance?
I think he is. I think he is. And there's a lot of things that go on, behind closed doors that you don't know about, in terms of when we watch the game, like we don't know the minute details of what the receivers are supposed to do, where the quarterback's eyes are supposed to be. So a lot of times when the quarterback makes a mistake, a lot of times it's not all 100% on him, and likewise the other way around. Sometimes a receiver could get bumped off on press coverage. So I just don't know what they're telling those guys. But I'm not ready to say that Aaron Rodgers is not a top flight quarterback anymore. I'm just not. When the guy's been in the every year he's either winning the MVP or he's in the MVP race, and I just don't think that the quarterback position. I do think other positions you can fall off very, very quickly, which I've seen with my own eyes. But quarterback is not one of them unless there's a legit injury there, in my opinion. So I'm not ready to say Aaron Rodgers is not a top flight quarterback at all. As for the Packers, to say they have an uphill battle is probably an understatement to make the playoffs. I don't. It's just gonna be hard for them. I mean, it's for some reason they're not playing great football right now, and to lose a game on Thursday night at home is a hard thing to do, because not a hard thing to do. It's easy to do. It's easy to lose the game, but you got the other team coming in on a short week, traveling, especially to a place like Lambeau Field at this time of the year where it's freezing cold. It's just a whole different set of elements playing in Lambeau at this time of year than it is at the beginning of the year. And when you're in that division like I was in Minnesota, you always look to see where are we when we're at Green Bay, because you're inside of Minnesota, you're inside in Detroit, right? And then you got obviously a cold game with Chicago if that's late in the season. But that's when you always look for, okay, where are we playing Green Bay, early in the season or late in the season? Because it's a totally different game. So I was shocked that they lost that game last night. I really was. I know the Titans are, and I'm glad we brought the Titans a little bit. The Titans are always like this, the nonchalant, like winning team in the NFL. I don't think those guys down there get enough credit. I really don't.
I was just going to say, Mike Vrabel, to me, like everybody talks about Sirianni and Daboll, but like what Vrabel does more with less, I think, than any coach.
It's unbelievable what they're doing offensively right now. They're all NFL players. I got it, but like what they're doing offensively and is really, really good. And I don't think Coach Vrabel and those guys get enough credit down there in Tennessee. It's almost like people just expect them to win anywhere between 10 and 12 games a year, and that's hard to do. That's hard to do every year. And so I just don't think those guys get enough credit down there.
Yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry went over the 1,000-yard rushing mark halfway through the season here again last night. We know he ran for 2,000. Tannehill, 333 last night. Finding Austin Hooper for 2 touchdowns. Traylon Burks, $1.11, the replacement for A.J. Brown. To me, the Titans, I agree. I think they're the sleeping giant
Yeah.
in the AFC that nobody really talks about, right?
No one talks about it. And, I mean, they made, if I'm not mistaken, they made it to the AFC Championship game last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And
They were the 1 seed, I think.
yeah, they're the 1 seed.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just like everyone expects them to win 9-10 games a year. And it's like, 11-12 games a year. And it's just the Titans' normal year. Maybe it's because they haven't won a championship. I don't know.
I think they got a shot. And I'll tell you what, in terms of the AFC, after the Chiefs, like if this UCL the UCL injury with Josh Allen, if that lingers, I think the Titans might be the team.
Let me tell you, that shoulder injury is painful. I had that in college, 3rd degree.
Really?
It put
The
me
UCL?
What's that?
The UCL injury?
No, talking about shoulder, right?
Yeah. What is it? It's
Tommy
John.
It's when you sprain your shoulder, basically. And I still have a little bump on my shoulder from that. And that injury, it's painful. And every time you get hit on it, it just hurts really bad. And it's hard to. I had it in my right arm too, and it just hurts. I mean, it just hurts. And I mean, when the guy that his job is to go out and throw a football, and you got a shoulder injury, hard.
Yeah,
hard. Bills are still stacked though. The Bills are still stacked. I'm not worried about the Bills either. They're well coached. They're still an unbelievable team. I mean, the fact that they lost that football game on Sunday was incredible. The way they lost it.
Yeah, well, Buffalo, by the way, they're going to get 2.5 feet of snow. They moved the game to Detroit.
Did they move the game? I saw I didn't see them that they had moved it. They are moving the game to Detroit. Okay.
Yeah, they're going to get 2.5 feet of snow. So they moved that one. I'll get into that with my NFL pick'em after the segment, but I wanted to pick your brain on a couple more things. We got a question coming in from the chat room in terms of Kenneth Gainwell. And Shane Steichen was specifically asked yesterday in his press conference about the lack of committee. We saw them use a committee approach early in the season, but Gainwell was such a big passing component of the offense last year. And it's been non-existent this year, even Boston Scott. And Steichen had credited it to just hey, we added more perimeter weapons in the offseason, A.J. Brown, and we got, by the way, we added Quez Watkins, and there's just not enough balls to go around. Their time will come. It'll happen organically. What's your take? Because I said earlier in the week, the Eagles' offense is funny because it's a chameleon because it can adapt and adjust, but it also doesn't have a true identity. Sometimes Jalen Hurts will throw forward deep bombs on you and beat you that way. Sometimes he'll run the ball and it'll be RPO and committee approach. But it seems like the Eagles offense, is it a good thing that they can adapt and adjust each week, Coach? Or is it a bad thing that they really, truly lack an identity? And getting back to the Gainwell point, are you concerned at all that he hasn't been involved? And you could throw Boston Scott in there. They each had 1 touch last week, which that's not a committee approach, is it?
No, it's not. And I'm going to answer that. That's a really good question. And both have kind of the same answer. I think it's good that the Eagles can adapt personally, because at the end of the day, if you look at their training camp installation, they have their base plays, which we call our staples. Hey, here are our 40 staples that we can go to anytime we need. If we're struggling, I always had a staples list. Here's the concepts that we can run out of any personnel grouping. We can run at any time and really not practice them because the guys know them. We've done them since the start of training camp. So the Eagles have that. I love the way the Eagles play offense because they attack the defense's weaknesses. At least they try to. It doesn't always work, but at least they try to. And like I said, I used to have I work for a guy that he and I would disagree about this all the time. Is I would say, what do you do if a team's struggling against the blitz? Well, we blitz. What do you do if a team's struggling against zone coverage? Well, we run zone. It's the same way on offense. Okay, each chapter of the book is different. If you're playing a team that's the 31st ranked team in the NFL in rushing, we're going to run the football. We're going to try to run the football. Another team that we played that season had 3 starters that were rookies in the secondary. and we're going to use our veteran receivers that are getting paid a lot of money and beat up those 3 rookies. And so I like that. To me is how you play football. I don't think you play each game the same. Some people disagree with me and just say, hey, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball all the time. I call them the run the ball cult. I disagree. I don't think that's the way you play football. I just think that you do the same thing that the defense does. If you have a rookie right tackle, okay, you better have some chip help over there for him because it's coming over to his side. Okay, they're going to stick Khalil Mack over there or a Bosa or somebody like that on that guy. So you better be ready to roll and have a plan for that. And I think it's the same way you play offense is you identify the defense's weaknesses and you try to do any way possible to expose that. And, the whole back by committee thing, there's sometimes you just want to go with the guy that is, if he has a hot hand, you roll them. And, some guys, that's been an approach as well. And you start out by committee, and as the season goes along, maybe you find out a guy does this better than this guy, and maybe that's a little bit more the game plan that week. So, each week's different.
No doubt. Coach John DeFilippo here on the Football Playbook. So we'll get you out of here, Coach. A couple more quick ones here for you. I want to get to your top performers. Let's do that. Let's go to your top performers. Then I'll get a prediction on the Eagles and Colts from you. So last week, who else stood out from the NFL Week 10?
I brought up that Buffalo-Minnesota game and 2 guys from that game that stood out. Obviously, Justin Jefferson on 4th and 18. I mean, that's going to be a highlight video for that, like the Odell Beckham Jr. catch that we saw against Dallas with the one hand. We're going to see that one for a few years.
The rest of our lives, probably, right?
Yeah, that one's going to be on all the highlight tapes and the commercials and all that stuff. And then, you got to give kudos to the old crafty veteran Patrick Peterson too. 2 picks, picked off Josh Allen twice, one time in the end zone, and he had a great game. And a guy like that continues to play at a high level. And I'm going to throw out a group of guys here in my third group. It's going to sound a little odd, okay, but I follow this team, so I have a couple friends on the staff. The Detroit Lions offensive line, I thought, played fantastic on Sunday. And led by one of my favorites, the center, Frank Ragnow, who I loved coming out of Arkansas in the draft. Loved him coming out. That was my guy. Like his coaches, like we have crushes on players coming out sometimes. Like, I love this guy. Like that was my, like, I guess you'd call man crush coming out of that draft was Frank Ragnow from Arkansas. That dude's a beast and just a premier interior lineman in our league that those guys sometimes get overlooked. So you got to give, which I don't call them the skill players. Those are big skill. So we have skill and big skill. So you got to give some kudos to the big skill sometimes too.
No doubt. Well, let me ask you, since you brought up the Lions, they play a lot of teams close. They're at the Giants, who are 7-2, breathing down the necks. Like, if the Eagles lose this game and the Giants win against Detroit, they're going to be tied amongst the division. How do you view the Lions and Giants matchup, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot?
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Lions are they've been unbelievably explosive at times, and then there's some games they've scored I think they've been shut out once.
It's been like a multi Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yeah. And so I hope for their sake that the explosive Lions show up for them on Sunday, because I think that's going to be a really good game. I mean, my feelings on Coach Brian Daboll in New York. I've made that very apparent here on the show. I think their defense is playing better the last little bit here. I know they were giving up a ton of points early in the season, a ton of yards. They're playing better. They're starting to settle in. So I see a good game. I think they'll have a hard time going on the road and beating the Giants. But the way the Giants are playing right now, but that's why you play the game. I mean, who would have thought the Commanders were going to come in and beat the Eagles in Philadelphia? Not me. I would have, if I was a betting man, would have placed a lot of money the other way. But it's the way it goes in the NFL. That's why it's so fun and it's so hard.
That's why they play the games. Yeah.
Hey, who's Rutgers have this week?
Penn State at home. Yeah. I was trying to get up there, Coach, man. Family's life has been getting in the way for me this season. But by the way, my friend, Coach Jim Mora, it'll be his birthday. They're at Army.
Oh, that's a big game.
His father,
the job he's done. Yeah, the job he's done this year.
Dude, I think they're bowl eligible at
They
6-5. They knocked off Liberty last week at 8-1.
huge win. I mean, Liberty was ranked like 15th or 16th in the country.
Unbelievable what Jim Moore is doing. So I've been texting it up with him, and he's just so proud of the team of what they've done. I mean, that team hasn't won 6 games in the past decade.
I know, guy's a stud. I love Jim Moore Jr. He's always been I've always admired him from afar, and he and I have a very close mutual friend. Unfortunately, that my mentor in football, Greg Knapp, that had passed away on the bike accident, and he and Jim are very, very close as well. And I feel like I know Jim, even though I've only met him like once or twice. I feel like I know him because of Greg, And
good dude. Yeah,
unbelievable dude.
No, and it'll be his birthday. His father will be at that game, and the UConn double-digit dogs still not getting that respect.
Really, it's Army.
Yeah, well, that triple option's hard to game plan
without a doubt.
So I still think I give UConn a puncher's chance in that one. I had some other good questions lined up. Yeah, I could spend all day talking football with you, Coach. But
give me one more if you got time. Let's go one more.
I was trying to remember what I had for you. Let me get the Eagles and Colts prediction. I'll see if I can recollect the memory here.
All right. I'm gonna say I don't think Magic can strike twice in a row with a new head coach. So I'm gonna say Eagles 29, Colts 17.
Wow. Okay. So you see this as a Eagle-centric game? I
do. I think the Eagles bounce back. I think they just got too much leadership and too many good players in that locker room to not bounce back strong, and they're way too well coached to not come back strong. I think it's good. Honestly, I think it's good this time of year to taste a little humble pie. When sometimes you start getting into that coast mode and every day just feels like Groundhog Day. Hey, it's a normal Tuesday, a normal Wednesday, a normal Thursday, Friday, Saturday, walkthrough, play Sunday. Sometimes you need to rock the boat a little bit, and sometimes it's good to get punched in the face mid-season when you're feeling pretty good about yourself. I think that goes a long way, and it's good for them for them as a team to have that. I mean, obviously they're pissed and they don't want to lose any games. No one does, but sometimes you just need to get kicked on your butt and get back up.
No, I agree. I think the loss this past week will be good at the end of the day. However, I still have my concerns about the run defense. I know they signed Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh. I don't know how much that'll help them out this week. I'm going to give my prediction here before the commercial break with Coach Flip right here. I've got the Eagles, Coach, 27-24. I think it's going to go down to the last possession.
Ooh.
I would not be surprised if the Colts pull this off because they're playing with house money. And Jeff Saturday is suddenly injected a belief. And he said, buckle up. We're going to put Matty Ice back in the saddle. Oh, by the way, Jonathan Taylor's back on track. The offensive line played their best game of the season, only 4 pressures allowed and 30 dropbacks. I don't think that's a coincidence with Jeff Saturday taking over. I'm telling you, man, this team is so loosey-goosey. I think this is a trap game. I really do. I would not be surprised if the Colts win it. I think 7.5 is way too many points. I'm going to pick the Eagles to win, but I slept on the Commanders too much last week. I don't want to make the same mistake again this week. Eagles got to show me something.
The NFC East games are always close.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's true. That's
very
true.
rarely do you go into Dallas and blow somebody out.
No, that's very true.
Or Washington and blow somebody out, or very rarely. I mean, it happens. I've been on teams where it's happened before. We've gotten blown out at times, and we've blown people out at times, but it's hard.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll come back. We'll miss you next week, but we'll come back the following week. We'll talk about the Colts and I guess the Packers, and we'll preview the Titans, a couple teams here that we got a chance to see just last night. Coach, always appreciate the time, man. My favorite time of the week. And
me too, Rick.
Always a pleasure, man.
Hey,
I guess
happy Thanksgiving to everybody, guys.
I was going to say I won't have you on the air here until after the holidays. So
yeah,
I'm sure we'll talk off the air, but official happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the family time. We know You got the new head coaching gig, so this will be one of the last holidays you get in until it's go time and show time. So we appreciate it.
You know it. Well, happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and go Birds, baby.
All right, there you have it. Your world champion